The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Welcome back to our second installment of the UAB Director's Chair. He is the athletic director on the left-hand side of the screen, Mark Ingram. Right there, go Blazers, UABblazers.com. You can check them out on their website for all their information. Of course, I'm Tony Kurre. We do the show every single week. Info at TonyKurreRadio.net. Info at TonyKurreRadio.net. If you got any infill questions, you want to throw anything out, we always get a couple of interesting emails. Mark, first of all, how are you doing, sir? Everything well with you?
Yeah, I'm excellent, Tony. Thank you, man.
Fantastic. We're doing this show now on the 6th. Of course, it's the day after National Signing Day. Totally forgot about it.
What is that?
Listen, I've been doing sports radio for years, and of course, I started my own thing here, and it used to be such a huge day, National Signing Day on February 5th. We'll talk about that in just a second. But February 6th, we are 3 days away from Super Bowl 59. We haven't talked anything about the Super Bowl. It's going to be the Eagles and the Chefs playing coming up on Sunday, and just wanted to get your thoughts on who you think's going to win. I know several of our emails. Let's ask Mark who's going to pick for the Super Bowl. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so it's a funny thing in my house because we used to live in Columbia, Missouri, which is 2 hours from the Chiefs. And when we lived there, the St. Louis Rams won the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And that was really fun for the state. It was my first real interaction with pro sports being close enough that people cared, like really cared passionately. And then prior to UAB, I was at Temple University, which you know, which is in Philadelphia. And Philadelphians are crazy about the Eagles. I mean, crazy about the Eagles. And my two sons, John and Charlie, they love, you'd think they were born and raised in Philly. We lived there 3 years, okay? We lived there 3 years. I enjoyed all 3 of those years. It was a fun time. But you'd think they were like making, having cheesesteaks for lunch every day and the soft pretzels for breakfast and whatever. They love the Eagles. They love the Sixers and they love the Phillies. Love. We're not really hockey people. I respect hockey, but we didn't really watch any hockey. But the Philadelphia people are nuts about the Flyers too. So it's fun. It's fun for us that both teams, because my oldest, John, while he does love the Eagles, as a kid, his favorite player was Eric Berry, that was the all-pro safety for the Chiefs. Yep. So kind of had this affection for the Chiefs as well. I think ultimately the Chiefs are the most consistent team. The Eagles have struggled to stay healthy. And if they can get all their guys playing healthy, they're going to make a real run at it. And I think the Eagles could win it. I think my house will be likely pulling for the Eagles. Now, here's another funny. So my daughter, my youngest, Audrey, she's 16. She watched that, I think it's a Netflix documentary, but it's a documentary called Quarterback, which is Kirk Cousins, Marcus Mariota, Patrick Mahomes, and one other, and now I'm forgetting. Anyway, but she loved that show. My daughter, of all people, and I think she's the only person in the house that's watched it. She watched it on her own. We didn't even know she was watching it. And she's a big Mahomes fan, so that'll be fun in our house. So I think it'll be a good game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good too. The line's 1.5, so that's, at least Vegas thinks it's going to be close. And it's interesting because these two teams played just a couple of years ago. We had that 30-35 game, which was just fantastic. We can only pray that we're going to have another one that good. And of course, if you remember the last time Philadelphia, of course, won a Super Bowl, it was Nick Foles who got the trophy done. And of course, that was one of those things where, do you need a great quarterback to win a Super Bowl? Well, there you have it.
But he played well. I mean,
he did play well. And that team was great. That team was stacked behind him. And you can certainly make an argument that Jalen Hurts, while I think he's a much better quarterback than Nick Foles, again, he's one of those situations where, when he went through some concussion protocol, he's looked fantastic since he came out. He doesn't need to go crazy and throw 4 touchdowns and 400 yards to win this football game because of Saquon Barkley and because of some of the guys on defense. I mean, on paper, this team is a better team than Kansas City. I think a lot of people want to see some history too because we've never had a three-peat. I did think it's pretty funny, and I didn't realize this, but Pat Riley owns the rights to the words three-peat.
Yeah.
So if in fact they do win this game, Pat Riley is in for a big fat payday. I'm not sure what type of residuals he's going to get, but I thought that was really interesting. So
yeah, he's got that, and it's somebody like Rick Pitino. Maybe somebody has the rights to the words "Midnight Madness."
Yeah,
because it may not be Coach Pitino, but it's a coach.
Yeah.
That has it, who started that, and then when other people started doing it, they're like, whoa.
And you have the you have the rights to go. You have the rights to go Blazers. So there you have it.
There you go.
There you go. All right, we'll see what happens coming up for the big game. All right, so
I think the Eagles. Listen, the Eagles have got to have AJ Brown healthy.
Yep.
They've got to have Devontae Smith, healthy, and they've got to have their tight end, whose name I'm blanking on all of a sudden. If those three guys are healthy and playing, and Saquon Barkley has a good, not even great, but a good night, he'll be special.
He's going to
have their defensive guys like Slay. Their defensive line, they got to step up because their defensive line is really good.
Yeah.
Really good.
And something tells me too, and it's crazy because they're not that old, but something tells me that window's about ready to close on Mahomes and Kelsey on that duo. It just seems like they've been together for so long. They're still relatively healthy. They're still putting up unbelievable numbers. Patrick Mahomes not so much as Kelsey is, but and I think a lot of people thought because of the Taylor Swift thing, maybe his numbers would fall off. They've just gone up. So having her on his side, he's not having any issues performing at a very high level. So that should be interesting. So yesterday was National Signing Day.
No.
This would be a day that, when I was doing Radio on Jocks, we talked about it a couple of weeks ahead of time. We had a special day formatted for it. Guys bringing their hats out. We'd have an Auburn bell going off, and UAB bell going off. We'd have an Alabama bell going off, and we'd stop everything we're doing. And so just signed with blah, 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 blah. I did see that UAB signed 5 more guys for a signing class of 31 guys. To finish up National Signing Day, and 21 of those players, of course, were transfer portal players as well. So it looks like you got a pretty good class coming in. But everything you pull up, it just sucks because it's just not. It used to be so much fun, and it's so funny because when I'm sitting there talking to my son, I said, there used to be a fax girl. Remember the girl standing by the fax machine for each university? You used to go to their website and you could see because guys faxed. That's how you would find out whether you're going to the school or not. Guys would fax the school.
Fax machine. We still had to use the fax machine until 3 years ago.
Yeah.
The whole scan a document.
No, people don't even know what a fax machine is. I mean, they don't.
People don't even have them.
But that's how you commit is you'd fax in your commitment to a particular school. But just talk about how it's changed a little bit. And then I want you to talk about that transfer portal, the 21 players. It sounds like a lot to me.
Yeah. So the first Wednesday of February every year used to be National Signing Day in football. And then we moved and we added a December signing period for high school kids. And that was all for the sake of the high school player that's just ready for recruiting to be finished with. I don't think that was a good move for college football. College football is important to college athletics. Everybody knows that. Everybody agrees with that. It was bad for college football. And I don't know that it really benefited that many high school kids. There's outside of your top 300, recruiting is very different for the vast majority. There's going to be 2,000 kids sign in let's just call it the FBS. If you take 100 and, what is 134 times 20 on so 2,600, 2,700 kids are going to sign, every year. And that number is shrinking now because of the transfer portal, which we'll get to. So if we signed, call it 10, that number is now down in the FBS to more like half of that, right? So less than 2,000 kids. But my point is, we made this change to benefit, call it 300 guys, the top 300, which has no benefit to still the vast majority of the guys that actually sign. And so why it's bad for college football is that ESPN used to block off the entire day.
Oh, yeah.
And we owned it. We owned the whole day. And they would track all these guys, particularly the top 300, where were they committing to? And this guy is, you say top 300, if Tony Curry's ranked 270, is that bad? No, it's excellent. Because you might be 270 overall, but you're the number 4 left guard, and because you're not a skill player, you're not in the top 100, you're not a pass rusher, but these are important players. So anyway, you track that all day, and then they would kind of keep track of how the high school ranking, your recruiting class, based on these stars, which I don't want to say they're irrelevant, but they're sometimes not the most accurate. It's based on size and speed and certain metrics of people's physical characteristics. But by going to that December signing period, now the February thing happens, and it's like, wait, was that yesterday? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny too because National Signing Day was so much fun, and I know there was always a big flip. I always remember there was always a big flip. There was always a guy that was going to Auburn that would flip to Alabama, or sometime whether it's UAB and Conference USA would flip teams the last minute. They'd change the hats. And it was fun. I mean, it got a little goofy there for a while, and it was almost like a gender reveal for a lot of these kids. You were trying to figure out things, and I agree with you. It took a lot of the onus off when you had that December signing day. I think a lot of people obviously did it because a lot of players didn't want to be burdened with having to deal with February 5th and have to go through all that. Well, where I think the majority of the players really, really loved it. 2 questions. First of all, you have a scholarship limitation on how many scholarship players you can have. Now that we're paying players, does that matter at all anymore?
Yeah, you're only going to be able to have 105 players as of, assuming that the House settlement is approved in April, which everyone believes it will be. It includes a roster limitation in football of 105 total players, and they can all be on scholarship if you want them to be. Today, it's 85 in football, and the other 20 theoretically would be walk-ons. But if your institution wants to put all 105 on scholarship, you can. I don't know how many people will do that. People initially, the big budget schools are like, yep, we're all in, we're going to do it. And then you start pulling back and you go, well, there's only like 45 to 50 guys that actually get on the field and play.
Yeah.
Do we really need more people on scholarship, or do we need maybe that money to pay the ones that are playing? Because we're also in this, as part of the House settlement, you're also dealing with it's the revenue sharing model. So is that maybe a better use of those dollars to ensure that you're paying the guys that are your key performers, your starting quarterback, your best receiver, your tailback, your pass rusher, these key middle linebacker, these key guys. And I think more people are doing that. And listen, I don't want to say this and be wrong. I think I'm right. The Southeastern Conference as a league made a decision that for at least year one to not go above the 85.
Okay.
They may spend the full $20.5 million, and they will, that they're allowed to spend, but it won't be on putting extra guys on scholarship.
Gotcha. But there is a fine line there where, you may not say, listen, we don't have any money to pay you, but we can't put you on scholarship. So I guess there's a way of kind of moving some numbers around a little bit. So at least, you can save money just from a scholarship standpoint.
20. Sorry, Tony, you can also put them on a partial. So that's new in football. Right now, everybody that's on a scholarship, it's an all or none. You're a full or you're not.
Yeah.
And in this new settlement, you could put everybody on a 50%, or you could put them all on 75%. So then you could do 105 guys with the same money, same amount of money we spend on that. On the 85, you could spend the same amount of money on 105 and put them all on like a 80% scholarship or something.
Is the walk-on extinct?
No. No, I think so coming back to the SEC, if I'm correct that I saw this announcement that they're staying at 85, they're still going to have 105 players, which means 20 of them will be walk-ons. But what it's doing is it's killing the developmental part of the game at the FBS level. We have to have players who can play immediately, which is why when you look at our signing class, we have so few high school guys and so many transfer portal guys. We got to have guys that can play immediately. And some of the high school kids we think can. So we've got a few projects, but we think half we think can come in and make an impact as freshmen.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately, Tony, means they'll probably be with us 1 to 2 years tops, when somebody else who we beat out in recruiting or never saw them or overlooked them will come in as we saw this past year and take them from us, induce them into the portal with money we don't have, $200,000 that we don't have.
This is the UAB director's chair. He is the athletic director, and just great to have him on every single week. And we've had coaches on, stuff like that. I just love to talk to the athletic director, and particularly Mark, because he can kind of pull back the screen, the Wizard of Oz trick a little bit, and find out what's going on in college sports at a much deeper level. And you can hear the show at least 5 days a week here on Tony Curry Radio on TKR. We just started back up. We took a few weeks off. You can also check out, of course, the Inferno, the other show they do with some of their coaches. It's good too. So check that out. 21 transfer portal guys. I don't. Is that good? Is that bad? I mean, I guess it depends on how good these transfer portal guys are. But that sounds like a lot.
Yeah, in the modern era, Tony, it's not really. I mean, you're taking guys from the FCS or junior college who excelled there. And then you're taking guys who I know we got, as an example, a receiver from Iowa who we really are very high on. Iowa doesn't throw the football a lot, and so he wants catches, right? Yep. He was getting on the field. That's not the issue. It's just their style of offense isn't necessarily conducive to a wide receiver that has a hope and dream of playing at the next level. He's got to catch balls. He's got to show people that he can catch the ball and do something with it. And just like Tajon Palmer and several other guys that have come here, and J.J. Nelson that have gone on to play in the NFL from here at that position. But you got to have catches. You got to have catches. So anyway, you get some guys that are in the Power Four that maybe they're a second string guy, or in his case, not just kind of in a weird, kind of a bad fit situation, even not unhappy, just needs to catch balls. You get a second string guy who's playing behind an All-American. It's not that the second string guy's a bad player. There's just only so many people can get on the field. And again, those type guys, whether they should have thought it or not, all believed out of high school they were going to one day be in the NFL. And so you're not going to the NFL if you can't even get on the field at your college team. And so they're trying to get, reps and snaps and playing time.
Yeah, it used to be, you wanted to hire a coach that was great at X's and O's and was also a good recruiter too. There were some guys that weren't good at X's and O's but were great recruiters, and you put together the staff. And gosh, if you had a guy that was great at both, you had yourself a winner chicken dinner. And now I'm wondering myself, is there a particular coach or a particular guy that's really good at transfer portal guys? Is there, a guy that's just really intrigued and knows who's moving around and kind of can put his ear to the ground and find out, hey, this guy's interested in moving around, this, that, and the other inside your conference and inside of college football?
Well, I don't know if this is good or bad, but a lot of these kids have agents now. Mm-hmm. And so the agent will reach out to you and say, hey, I got two receivers, a defensive tackle, and a tight end that all want to get into the portal. This is who they are. This is how much money they need. And if you want them, they're going to be available. Yeah. And you're like, first of all, he's not that good, or second of all, whatever you tell them, whatever you tell them, you're like, yeah, we're interested, or no, we're not interested, or whatever. But that'll happen through an agent or sometimes the high school coach. I mean, we've lost guys here whose middleman was their high school coach who acknowledges we gave that kid the only offer they had coming out of high school. But then in a recruiting conversation with a Power 4 school who says we need to pick the position, whatever, running back. Oh. They go, well, my guy at UAB, did great. You want me to tell him you're interested in him? I mean, it's kind of like they go, well, shoot, we'd love to have him, And so then high school coach talking to the player, hey, man, I was on the phone with so-and-so at University X, and they'd really like you. I think they'd pay you this much if you want to go. And they get in the portal. Yeah. And they poof.
It's
a lack. I don't want to say a lack of loyalty, but it's just it's taken the relationship part out of all this. Mm-hmm. The relationships around the state used to be critical. They're still important, it's just different. You're taking fewer guys. The relationships you have with high school coaches are very different. We're probably better off to continue to take more guys out of the FCS ranks who went to, I don't know, Mercer, Chattanooga, something, and really excelled, and that we or others missed in high school, that became better than we thought they would be, and take them there. And they appreciate the opportunity. They moved up. Yeah. Everything we have is probably bigger and fancier and nicer than what they're used to. Different than when you take a guy from the Big Ten or the SEC. You never know. Sometimes they come in and they're awesome. Sometimes they come in and they're like, man, when I was at wherever, we never had to do that, or we always got one of these. Yeah. I don't know. We got more gear. We had a bigger, fancier weight room.
Yeah. For everything going on at UAB, go to UABsports.com, UABsports.com. That goes for tickets and everything else. Basketball team. I'm starting to understand how Andy Kennedy works now. We know he's won more basketball games in his first 4 years than any coach in UAB history. And it seems like we were expecting a lot from this team this year, and it happens every year. You get out of the box. It's like 7-7, 7-8, 8-7, 9-8, something like that. You lose a couple of games you don't think you should. You, of course, had that horrible game where you were up by 27, you lose. And next thing you know, about this time of the year, things start to gel. You hope everyone stays healthy. You've won 8 or 9 games. The North Texas game was huge. That team, of course, was, I think, 16-5 coming in. That was a nice win. I hate watching their style of basketball, so I was happy to see a victory against North Texas. Always nice to beat the Mean Green. But this is about the time of the season where things start to kind of gel together a little bit. And I was really nice. It was nice to see UAB only put up 64 points and win a basketball game too. I thought that was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, North Texas's style is they're very physical. They're the most physical team in our league. They play incredibly good defense, and so they limit your scoring. I mean, we probably scored almost 20 points less than our average. I think our average is 83, 85, something like that is our average. So, yeah, they really impacted that. We again, had a really tough night beyond the arc, which has been our Achilles heel to this point, frankly. But otherwise, we are playing much better than our record would suggest. And I think our team is a lot better than our record reflects. So, our conference record right now is 8-2. Nice. One loss to Memphis and one loss to North Texas. By the way, the loss at North Texas, I think we were up 17 at the half and lost that game. We gave up the lead. We tied it back. And with no time on the clock, a guy throws from the 3-point line. We got a player in his face, and he like shoots it like this. Yeah. And it goes in.
I remember,
the win. And so, whatever, tough luck. Yeah. But shouldn't have given up the lead, right? But otherwise, those are our 2 losses. So, but having beaten North Texas at home the other night, so we had the same record. We were both 7-2, but they have a tie break. But now we're 8-2 and they're 7-3. So we're now in second place behind Memphis. And Memphis is beatable. We played Memphis at Memphis, and one of their staff members after the game caught me in the hallway, and I went up to Memphis for the game, and he said, man, he goes, look, he goes, tough one tonight. I said, yeah, you guys look really good. He goes, that's the best we've played all year. And so, of course, lucky us, we haven't kept them that night. So whatever, everybody plays well. I'm sure that's the way they went to their locker room saying, hey, man, this is who we said we could be all year. Let's carry that momentum, right? Like if you're them, that's what they're capable of, and they are. And they just played a great game. We're going to get them back here in Bartow, though, on, looking at my schedule, it is March the 2nd. It's a Sunday. So March the 2nd, they got to come back here. So we've still got, several home games. We've got, sorry, I'm looking at my calendar here. That's fine. South Florida on February the 16th, Temple on the 23rd, Memphis on the 2nd, and then Florida Atlantic on March the 6th, our last home game. So we've still got 1, 2, 3, 4 more home games here at Bartow. And look, man, we need to pack the house.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to have people show up.
It looked great on television the other night, by the way. I mean, I get a chance to come down there on Monday night, but it looked really, really well. It was on ESPN too. And
well, we had our largest student crowd of the year. You know, students are our toughest group to get to. I think students who live off campus kind of get off campus and are like, man, I'm not going back to the island. But really, our core attendees are our on-campus students, which is only about 3,000 of them.
Yeah.
And so we had about 800 at the game the other night, just under 800. And so that was it makes a difference.
Yeah.
They themselves in particular really make a difference. And then frankly, Tony, a lot of our season ticket holders who are side court, lower level folks, the tickets are sold. You see those empty seats. They're not because they're unsold, they're sold. So we just got to keep, hammering on our season ticket holders. Hey, look, we're grateful that you invested financially. That helps. But please, please, please show up. And if you're traveling or can't make it, please make sure your neighbor is there. So.
Yeah. And I'll say this too, and I think it's worth bearing is Bartow Arena is a UAB facility. You control everything there, and just from a price standpoint, I know a lot of people have said some things about Protective that's run by the BJCC. They control all the prices. I know sometimes you get down there and it's expensive to eat and everything else down there. You can go to Bartow Arena, man, and have just one hell of a good time and feed the entire family. So I don't want
we
you
try to keep it all as low as we can.
Yeah, it's great. No, it's super good.
Look, we need the money, but we're trying to be price sensitive to our fan base.
It's super good. Jay French is.
Jay French, classic rock guy. We're not going to take it. Yeah, he played for Twisted Sister. He was a guitar player for Twisted Sister. Anyway, he's still around. Twisted Sister still doing some shows. He came out, Gene Simmons came out. I want to say 6 or 7 years ago. So it was probably a double. When you get older, you start doubling things. So it's probably 10 or 12 years ago. Said that classic rock was dead. I don't know why he said that because, at the time Kiss was still on the road and you still got the Eagles on the road and AC/DC still doing their thing. Now everyone's older. Jay French came out a couple of days ago. He was doing some podcast with some guy. And they were asking about where classic rock is. And he said, it was interesting. The big band, where they went through like a 20-year period. You had jazz that was hot for like 20 years. You had disco that was hot for like 8 to 10 years. You can still hear disco music, but disco music, for all due practical purposes, is dead. No one's making new disco music is what he meant. And he said, the reason I'm saying it's dead is because growing up, when I was 17 or 18, all these classic rock bands were like in their 20s and 30s. Roger Daltrey was 32. Pete Townsend was 34. Angus Young was 33. And they were still making albums. They're still making. That was weird because I had this weird dream the other night about it. I remember when some of my favorite bands would come out with a new album and how excited we would be to be able to hear the new vinyl. And I also remember how disappointed we were when we heard that our band broke up. I'm trying to think of a band that broke up when I was in high school, and it would get up and down the hallways. Hey, did you hear? I can just imagine what it was like when everyone found out the Beatles broke up. In the 70s. And he's like, say it's classic rock, but he did say that classic rock, he does believe that it's got staying power to be around in 100 years. He's like, there's no one making new classic rock music anymore, which is not a good thing. There's hip hop out there still hot. There's country music out there still hot. There's pop music that'll always be hot, but there's no one making classic rock music anymore. And I don't agree with that. There are people making music. I don't think there are radio stations that play it.
Amen.
So it's harder to find it. But there's plenty of bands trying to, Greta Van Fleet sounds just like Led Zeppelin and Wolf Mother. There's a ton of bands that are trying to make music. There's just not a place. I think we all absorb music differently. I don't think there are rock stations anymore, really. Maybe it's less popular. I don't know why that would be, but I also think that people listen to the radio less. We're doing this podcast. Like when we were growing up, this kind of thing didn't exist at all. A lot of people get into their car and they got on their Spotify, Apple Music. They're listening to podcasts. I just think people they're taking in their music differently and all sorts of media differently. And so that's what I would say. I don't agree. There's a ton of great bands that I enjoy listening to that
It is kind of sad because, you know, we had this thing called AOR. It was album oriented rock, and you had bands that were releasing singles, and album oriented rock was you go extra deep on albums. We get the album and we go 3 or 4 cuts deep. We would not wait for albums to be released as singles. We would actually go play those songs. And so we'd be playing brand new stuff that people hadn't heard. And if it was Boston, it was Boston. I mean, you love Boston. If it was Bob Seger, you were going to like Bob Seger regardless of whether you heard the song or not yet. And it was just fantastic. And those days will never come back because, you know, Billy Joel's not making new music. You know, James Taylor came out with an album a couple of years ago, but I don't really consider him classic rock. So I guess my point being is nobody out there, you know, I see like Damon Johnson, who was going to go back in the row with Brother Kane. They were going to come out with some new material. And I had a really interesting phone call with him. And he's like, where do I get the stuff played at? You know, in Birmingham, you go to Nashville, you know, you go to the classic rock station, say, hey, play my music, and they won't play it anymore. They will not. And I remember when we first came on the air, when Classic Rock 99 came on the air in 1988, we would play 12 songs an hour. 8 of the songs were classic rock songs from the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. And then the other 4 songs, we'd have 2 songs that were current. That would be like the new Eric Clapton song, the new AC/DC song, the new Boston song, the new Wolfgang song. Yeah. And then the other 2 songs were recurrents. And those were songs, you know, that obviously were played by some of this. So we were playing new music, new classic rock, but it was because it was still coming out, you know, and I listened to Wolfgang, which his album is fantastic. His last album he did is fantastic. It sounds so good. And it's just a damn shame that you can't hear it anywhere.
You can't hear it anywhere. It's like Rival Sons is terrific, but nobody knows who they are. Yeah. If you're not really into it. Yeah. Yeah,
it's really sad. So anyway, classic rock will always live on, and we'll continue to talk about it.
I think they're traveling. It's to your point, like Wolfgang is, like you can see him in concert. Look, man, if you go to one of his concerts, it's full. Yeah. So he's not playing a stadium, but he's playing pretty good sized venues, 3,000 to 5,000 person venues, and they're full.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, you know, because these guys aren't coming out with new music, maybe that's why people continue to want to go out and see them. I mean, REO Speedwagon's still doing their thing. Sammy Hagar's still on the road. I mean, these classic rock shows, you know, you look at Cheap Trick is coming to the brand new amphitheater next year. Rod Stewart, who just turned 80, is going to be playing at the amphitheater. Awesome. You know, people still want to see it and they still want to live it. And just because these guys die off doesn't mean their music dies off. It's still there. So great stuff, my friend. Hey, let's catch up next week. Thank you so much for your time. The UAB Director's Chair. It's available 5 days a week on TKR. Thanks to the 100,000 folks who have downloaded my app. We've been doing this thing for about 4 or 5 years, and so happy we could bring back the UAB Director's Chair. The other show you're a part of course, with the coach Andy Kennedy and Trent Dilfer. It's called The Inferno. You can check that out and go to their website, uabsports.com, to see that wherever you get your favorite podcast. You can check that out as well. Thank you, my friend. We'll catch up next week.
All right, pal. Thanks so much.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.